Don't adjust your screen. There is nothing wrong with your phone or monitor or whatever you're watching this with. Welcome to our Good Friday sermon, Endarkenment. In Luke 22 verse 53, Jesus says, "Every day I was with you in the temple courts and you did not lay a hand on me, but this is your hour when darkness reigns." Darkness does not get a good rap in Scripture. With all the verses about us being lights of the world and bringing your life into the light, it's understandable. At Christmas, we're encouraged in Matthew 4 verse 16 that people living in darkness have seen a great light. A light has dawned. And in Matthew 6 verse 23, it asks, if your eyes are bad and your whole body will be full of darkness, if then the light within you is darkness, how great is that? Luke 11 verse 35 encourages us, see to it then that the light within you is not darkness. And Ephesians 5 verse 8 says, for you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of the light. And so on. But as much as there is enlightenment, there is endarkenment in Scripture and in life. I'll let that sink in for a while. Endarkenment. As much as we are called to be seekers of enlightenment, we are also to value the lessons and the life in endarkenment. Times when it is not the light that wakes us up spiritually, not the light that heals us, not the light that transforms us, but the darkness and the confusion and the doubt and the questioning and the agony around us that slowly transforms us. It was in darkness that the curtains of the temple were torn in two, opening a way for us to God in Luke 23 verse 44. And it even says the sun stopped shining and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Times when we ourselves have prayed, Lord, if it's possible, let this cup of suffering pass from me. It was in darkness when Jesus called out in a loud voice, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit, in Luke 23:46. And when he said that, he breathed his last. It was in darkness when the Christ child escaped the terrors at night for Egypt with his parents in Matthew 2 verse 14. It was in darkness when Jesus walked out on the lake that one night and some of the disciples got a faith and a following lesson in trust. Interesting, it was in darkness when Jesus spent the night praying before choosing the 12 disciples in Luke 6 verse 12. And it was in darkness that often throughout his life, Jesus left others, according to Mark 1 verse 35, and spent time in prayer with the Father. Of course, it was in darkness when Nicodemus chose to have a conversation with Jesus and learned how to become a disciple. And it was in darkness when Jesus predicted Peter's betrayal in Matthew 26. It was in darkness, according to John 13 verse 30, when Judas took the bread. He went out, and so the horrors of Holy Week and the betrayal began. It was in darkness when Mary discovered that the stone had been removed from the entrance in John 20. All these vital, key, crucial, pivotal moments in Scripture, in the life of Jesus, in the life of his followers and his disciples, all happening in darkness. We wish it were not so, and we often wonder why it has to be darkness. But it is the way it is. That there is as much in Scripture and in life, and possibly even more so, to learn and to wake up from, and to become Christ's cross carriers from our dark days than when the days are good. That we have as much and possibly even more to learn from emotional dark days than when life is great. But who of us would naturally choose to want those dark days? Who of us would want times when we are wrestling with God or angels and leave limping? Who of us would normally choose times when we are sweating blood or in anguish or in pain? Who would want their time in the garden of agony? Who would want to be left with rattling confusion and emotional crucifixions? Note the gospel's focus is not on the physical pain of Jesus, but so much as the emotional, social pain. Would you prefer to sit under the feet of darkness and learn some life lessons of humility? No. Who of us would want to be schooled from sleeping in the wilderness? Not me. Who would purposefully choose to face the hour of darkness or death? But I'm asking, why does there have to be a death and a humiliation for us to learn? Couldn't there be some other way? Couldn't new life somehow occur without the dying? Why can't I learn these lessons in the light? Why is it that Jesus only addresses the Father personally, using the name Abba when he was suffering? Why is it in life that the best ways to get character and depth are so often the ways of powerlessness and wrestling with an inferiority or tackling some failure or some humiliation? What is it with life that we learn the most when we live lives of quiet desperation, where sickness and addictions and a dark family history and loneliness and the inadequacies of every kind are our greatest teachers? Why must life include divorce, death, denial, and despair before we learn these lessons? Why is it in life, to find new life, there has to be a certain kind of suffering or a certain letting go, a certain humiliation before we see the possibility of the new day? We all know that just like power and success are dangerous, but we don't always realize that failure and humiliation are also dangerous. As much as power can corrupt, so can powerlessness. As much as power can make us hard, so can poverty. Acts of violence come from people who are powerful and powerless. True, sometimes failure and frustration can build character, but sometimes they can build monsters. True, feelings of inferiority can drive us into the deepest parts of our souls, but there are demons as well as angels. Now, in these times, as a church, a community and a country in quarantined lockdown, for some, these times are dark hours. Being without extended family, losing the precious limited time we have of not seeing people we love, losing finances every day that this virus continues. These are dark days. But we now know that God does his best work in grave sights and darkness. Let me repeat, but in a new light. Yes, it was in darkness that Jesus breathed his last, but that meant we could live in forgiveness and freedom. Yes, it was in darkness when the Christ child escaped the terrors at night for Egypt with his parents, but that meant he lived a life of light that we could follow. Yeah, it was in darkness when Jesus walked on the lake at night, but that meant we all got schooled in exercising faith and trust. Yeah, it was in darkness, of course, when Nicodemus chose to have a conversation with Jesus. But we read later that very darkness led Nicodemus to honor and bless and anoint the broken, beaten body of Jesus to rise again. If we follow Jesus in his darkness, he'll lead us into light. Yes, it was in darkness when Jesus predicted Peter's betrayal at night, but you'll see if you read a little later in Mark 16 verse 67, you'll hear these words of grace. He has risen, he is not here. See the place where they have laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter. Mark 16, verse 7. And Peter. He's going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you. Yes, it was in darkness, according to John 13, verse 30, when Judas took the bread. He went out, and so the horrors of Holy Week and the betrayal began. But it was also in darkness when Mary discovered that the stone had been removed from the entrance of the tomb in John 20. So let me ask, what lessons will you learn when, and it will, and it does, when your time for endarkenment comes? Will you become bitter or better? More open or closed? Will you limp but leave blessed, or limp and leave bitter? Will you be able to muster the strength to link your individual heartbreak to Jesus' heartbreak for the world? What will you do with your fear? When despair is your own daily bread, will you blame, badger, and bully others because you have been hurt? You see, church, there's never a good time to die. Never a good time to bid final goodbyes. Never a good time to lose health. Never a good time to have a heart attack. Never a good time to be diagnosed with terminal cancer. Never a good time to lose friends or be betrayed or misunderstood. Never a good time to lose everything, to be humiliated. Never a good time to face death. But Jesus prayed 3 prayers in the garden according to Matthew. The first time he said, "My Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me." Verse 39. My Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. The second time, interesting, he prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass, unless I drink it, your will be done." Did you notice the progression in Jesus' prayer? The difference between the Jesus' first prayer in the garden and the second one is this. Jesus did not go on praying for the cup to pass. He went on praying for success in drinking it. We don't pray for darkness, but let it come if necessary and let it transform us. Let us, like Jesus, when we are in that darkness, find ways to say 7 words. Father, forgive them, to forgive. In that moment, to offer grace. Today you will be with me in paradise. 7 words. To reconcile with others, mothers, your son, your mother. To hear the comfort in Jesus' same question, my God, why? To admit our own needs at those times of darkness. I thirst. The 7 words of Jesus. To trust like Jesus did. Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. And to know at the end, when it is finished, we have done what we can to love, to live, and to learn. We call this Good Friday, Endarkenment.